Avengers! Assemble.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Excelsior, the world's #1 Marvel's Avengers / Guardians of the Galaxy podcast. My name is Christian Buckley. I'm your director. Today we're riding solo. This is the Iron Man, the Doctor Strange, the Black Widow to a normal episode of Excelsior that would be an Avengers movie. My co-host Jack Martin, what I'm saying, is off on assignment this week, so we're just hanging out together. Kind of a casual one, but we're going to run through what's new in Marvel's Avengers this week. And if any other Marvel stuff comes up along the way, I'll talk about it a little bit. I've only done one solo episode of the podcast, and that was like before the game came out. But the benefit is that because, I stream occasionally to like 4 viewers at a time, I'm used to talking to myself, trying to entertain. So that's basically how I'm treating this episode. So I hope you enjoy. We will be back to a normal episode next week with impressions on the Omega level threat, because Jack, like I said, on assignment, have not been able to squad up together. But I will direct you to Paul Tassi, his video on youtube.com/Paul Tassi, I believe. I'll link it in the description. He gave very insightful, good criticisms of the Omega level threat, which are unfortunately not the greatest. Well, I'll wait to pass judgment until I have my own experience with it. But for now, we'll kick off with Fury's report, which, guess what? I don't know what it consists of anymore because the weekly priority missions are gone. Fully taken out of the game at this point. So there's no low power level, there's no high power level, there's nothing like that. But what there is with Marvel's Avengers this week is a variety of things. We do, of course, have some new content in the game this week, that being the previously mentioned Omega level threat, the family reunion super adaptoid fight from Kate Bishop. We also have the multiplayer Mega Hives update in the game as it stands. You can also run it solo, just you, no AI teammates. So for you, grueling Dark Souls fans that want to be punished when you play video games, you can do that now. I believe the multiplayer Mega Hives are scaled down the way that the single player ones have been in the recent weeks, but look forward to that. I will be probably checking that out tonight after I finish recording and editing this show. But for the more worthy fans of Marvel's Avengers, you know who you are. You're like me. You've been waiting and 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 waiting. We got 2 Black Widow skins. We got 2. But we now have Thor. Thor's in the game. Thor's MCU Endgame, in quotation marks, costume has been added to Marvel's Avengers. It is 1,400 credits. It is in my game. It is the suit that I am rocking currently and will rock for the foreseeable future as Thor. I say Endgame in quotes because technically it's a suit featured in Endgame, but it's Infinity War Thor. It is the short hair Thor, bushy beard, the really nice Asgardian suit with the black, shoulder pad, like upper back cover on the red cape. Looks very, very nice. This is featured in the beginning of Endgame, so if you wanted, maybe like I did, to see the Norse god Thor at the end of the film, not happening. Interesting note though, Assemble, a fellow Avengers podcast, which they make great content, you should check them out. They apparently had an interview with Crystal Dynamics, and apparently Stormbreaker was attempted to get into the game. They tried to put Stormbreaker in. However, it's different from what we got with Cap's shield being the MCU shield, because that's just a reskin. Stormbreaker, if it was to be the MCU one, it would break too much for the game. That is a direct response from Crystal. And it's not worth it. It's not warranted for the level of currency they're charging for the Thor skin. So, unfortunately, no Stormbreaker. That's fine. Mjolnir's great, and the costume is great as well. There's other stuff that's relevant for MCU fans, though. We do have an Iron Man bundle in the marketplace this week that is 1,000 credits. It comes with the Endgame suit, so it's technically a discount on the Endgame suit. You get the Endgame suit, an emote, a nameplate, and a new takedown. So it's an Iron Man Hero bundle. Be sure to check that out if you're curious. I think I'm probably going to pick it up. I got some credits left in my account. Got to hang on 1,000 for Black Panther, though. Remember that. In regard to the team outfit set of the, crossing guard one we went over last week, Hulk, Widow, Cap, and Kate are available in the shop at the moment. And if you're looking to drop some major dough, 2150 credits. That's $22 basically. You get a very cool looking Kate skin. You get the basketball Hulk skin. I think young Thor, like the pelt with the red cape. Kamala Khan, Black Widow both have cool skins. Cap looks like he's in Die Hard. Iron Man is an Iron Man skin, and Old Man Hawkeye. It is a hero bundle, I think valued at, I think they said $80. But the reason there's bundles this week is because, of course, I'm sure you've seen this, there is a free-to-play weekend for the game on PS4, PS5, PC through Steam, and Stadia. An Xbox free weekend is coming at a later date. They haven't specified said date yet. Jack and I were talking a little bit off air. We're wondering if this has something to do with the Sony exclusivity with certain content in the game, if that is preventing Xbox from having a free version of the game at the same time. But that's just speculation. Personally, I could see a world where this game drops on Game Pass sometime this year, maybe around the time Guardians of the Galaxy drops, but we'll have to wait and see. Xbox players, I'm sorry, but you just gotta wait a little longer for some free avenging. But in the meantime, if you are diving into the game, if you are a listener of this show, if you're a loyal agent of Excelsior who's been here since the beginning, first up, shout out, you're awesome. You're awesome. Thank you for supporting the show. Thank you for supporting me and Jack. We love talking about Marvel, and we're glad you like listening to it. But if you're trying to get your friends into the game who maybe have been a little hesitant, maybe you know Marvel fans who have written the game off, this is a perfect time to get them in. I will say, I'll link this video in the description as well. The other day on youtube.com/joyclicks, I made a video of tips for beginners for the game. A few of the ones, basically, if you're trying to sell your friends on this, I would say highlight the Reassemble campaign because it's a free weekend, it's not a free week. There's a lot of stuff to do post-game now that there is some decently sized endgame content in the game. A lot of that requires power level 150 or high level power level, which they likely won't get to this weekend. But the Reassemble campaign, you love it, I love it. It's like 8 to 12 hours. That's worth it. I think you should sell them on that. If they're curious, yes, the multiplayer is interesting. Yes, they could dive in with you. However, I do think the core of Marvel's Avengers, what makes it so distinct and strong as a Marvel interpretation is Kamala Khan and this cast of Avengers so heavily tied to her. So, the Reassemble campaign is what you should introduce them with. They should get through it as much as they can. If they finish it, direct them to Kate, direct them to Clint. Then, if you're curious, the game is on sale right now. I believe it's $20 in a lot of places. I think it's probably $20 on Xbox as well. But, yeah, I think this is a great opportunity for them. Hopefully this weekend goes smooth. I haven't heard any issues technically so far. Steam concurrents for the game actually are up to like 6,000 right now, which are the highest they've been since launch. So I wouldn't be fully surprised if this weekend does really well for them. Obviously, we have an expansion coming up very, very soon. We'll get to that in just a moment, but I think this is a very strategic move that is probably make or break for the future of this game. We know now that the game does have content planned out until ideas for content, at least until 2023. I believe that this free weekend between PC and PlayStation, which presumably has the highest player count because of the Spider-Man promise, I believe this is a test that they want to see if they can attach new players based off of how far the game has come, and I say that loosely, mainly just ironing out technical issues for the most part. How far the game has come, people who wished it was single player but didn't realize it's a really great single player game, just marketed as a multiplayer game. I think they're trying to get those people, those Marvel fans who would have loved the game if they gave it a shot. They want them in. They want them to potentially buy the game after this weekend because they'd enjoyed it so much, and we're about to get another 6-hour campaign, potentially, with War for Wakanda on August 17th. So yes, War for Wakanda does have a date. We have seen some Black Panther skins. They all look great. And we do know we're getting a dedicated live-streamed war table the day before on August 16th, which is very, very similar, if memory serves, to what happened around launch last year. I'm pretty sure for launch of Marvel's Avengers, launch week, the day before the early access launch, there was a war table, and that is what announced Hawkeye, Kate Bishop, and teased Black Panther. So August 17th is the release of War for Wakanda for free for players of the game. The 16th is the presentation with multiple trailers for multiple pieces of content regarding this game. So I'm curious if that's going to be a new Omega level threat trailer, a character trailer, a villain sector trailer, who knows. But eyes are on that day. Jack and I will, of course, be covering the game weekly until then, and impressions that week. And I believe if things work out schedule-wise, at the very least, I will be live streaming and reacting to this presentation on August 16th. Excelsior JC or at Chen2D2 on Twitter to stay up to date for when that happens, when I go live. We can watch it together and get excited for hopefully some new content, hopefully some Ultron teases, hopefully a year 2 roadmap, because I'm sure you're aware, the roadmap is about to be complete. The roadmap has been updated as it stands. So far, we've launched Operation Future Imperfect, Tachyon Anomaly Event, Red Room Takeover, the Cosmic Cube, the Omega Level Threat Family Reunion. All that remains is War for Wakanda, the new expansion with Black Panther, new outfits, new villains, including Claw, a new Claw faction, new story, new biome, new outpost, new war zones and assignments, and outfits inspired by the MCU. So, we need to know what's coming in September, October, November, December, and I would imagine early into next year, based off of the vibes of this game's lifespan. I think it's safest to assume we'll probably get till March, because March in the games industry, and I'm pretty sure everywhere, is the end of the fiscal year because, taxes happen around then. So I imagine that this game probably has a good enough chance at a revival from now until March. If things don't turn around by March, I imagine Square, Marvel will be like, you know what? We made some fans, we did all right by the end, but it's time to move on. Again, that is purely just speculation, but I imagine the new roadmap will cover until March, because they did say it's going into next year. I don't think it's going to be a full September to September roadmap, but looking forward to seeing what's in store. It should be soon. I think they said July or August. It could have been June or July, but summer for a new roadmap. It makes sense to put out a new one after this one is complete. Hopefully, that will be at the August 16th War Table. But a few little bonuses to throw on for the free weekend before we move on. Currently, for returning players, there is bonus resource packages just for logging in. Again, I think there's a 50% off sale in the store for most old skins. None of the MCU skins are half off, unfortunately. But there is a 4 times bonus XP, which I will be absolutely sure to log in and grind out some harm rooms to get my champion XP leveled, because I do have hero catalysts. They do in fact stack, so I will be happy to be enjoying 5 times XP boosts just from running some harm rooms, and hopefully get my Thor to be even more OP for whenever the raid drops. But yeah, there's reasons for returning and new players to check out the game this weekend. Hopefully, if you're a lapsed player, if you still listen to this podcast, honestly, thank you. But I think there's reason to check it out again. There's reason to get your friends invested. There's reason to tell the world. There's reasons to get your friends who like Marvel to check it out, because we all know it's a good game with a lot of problems, but it's still a good game. So I want to be there for the new expansion. Hopefully that is the triggering of a new wave of content for this game. We'll have to wait and see. So that is basically the gist of what's going on this week in Marvel's Avengers. I did see that Crystal Dynamics said they'd be teasing new skins and other information about the expansion and stuff about Black Panther in the coming days and weeks leading up to launch, which is exciting. They did show the Most Dangerous Man outfit for Black Panther as one of the options, so exciting stuff coming. I would not be surprised to see a MCU Black Panther skin drop the week of launch. I'm sure they're waiting to show that off, but that is it for Marvel's Avengers this week. Before we wrap up, though, I do want to shout out a couple things because we did get some new information on the MCU side of things. Hawkeye got a first official look via Entertainment Weekly. We get to see Kate Bishop and Clint Barton face to face, along with the release date, November 24th. That is a Wednesday. I'm very excited for this show. I like Hawkeye in the comics a whole lot. I like him in this game a whole lot. And in the MCU, he's a little bit, not the best. But I do love Kate Bishop, and I know Jack does too. So both of us are looking forward to this show. Spoilers for Black Widow, the post-credit scene, tease up an interesting question that is going to be resolved in the Hawkeye series involving Yelena and potentially a hit on Clint Barton's life. There are rumors of the Kingpin being involved, Vincent D'Onofrio returning to the role of the Kingpin. So very excited for the Hawkeye show. That is going to be, of course, covered on this podcast when it hits every week, the way we did for Loki, Falcon, and Wanda. So look forward to that. In a similar vein, there's a lot of business going on right now in the legal courts between Disney and Marvel and Scarlett Johansson. We're not going to get too deep into it right now, but the gist of it is Scarlett Johansson, in her contract for Black Widow, the film, was promised an exclusive theatrical release, and a lot of her salary was depending on the box office results. We didn't talk about this much on the show. We briefly brought it up last week, but the second weekend for Black Widow was not the best. Granted, we're still in a pandemic, so I think there's a, universally, not just at Disney, there's a very high expectation from movie studios, it seems, for films to be hitting the numbers of box office numbers that we've been used to for the past 10 years, which is just not the case right now. But I digress. Scarlett Johansson was displeased knowing that Disney Plus would be getting premiere access because I don't believe she got any of that cut. And I think opening weekend it was around 80 million box office and I think 65-ish for Disney Plus, and she did not receive a cent of that. Mainly, I think the problem here is Disney overstepping Marvel, saying like, we don't need to renegotiate her contract. It's what it is. She'll get her theater cut, but in her contract there is the statement, hey, we're promised a theatrical exclusive release. Apparently, Scarlett Johansson is not the only one. This happened to Emma Stone in Cruella, featured a similar problem. She is currently weighing her options, I think she said, but an interesting, very interesting story that will probably shape what is to come with Marvel releases the rest of this year. Things seem to be escalating in the world to a point where I'm not going to be comfortable going back to a movie theater for a while, even though I saw Black Widow. Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings is dropping early September. That's just about a month away. I was banking on a premiere access release because I did not want to risk going to a theater around flu season. But either Disney's going to have to renegotiate with Simu Liu and the cast of that film. Hopefully they already negotiated. But I wouldn't be surprised if some of the premiere access releases pump the brakes a little bit. So things to consider moving into the fall. Another side note, I did see some speculation that the reason No Way Home doesn't have a trailer yet is because of COVID cases and Sony and Marvel knowing this will be like $1 billion movie and not wanting to start marketing the way they did for Black Widow and then step on the brakes until things get better. So, all I'm saying, be prepared for specifically Spider-Man No Way Home to potentially receive a delay. It is a Sony Pictures movie, so they will most likely handle the release different than what we've seen Marvel do and Disney do. But it's a good thing to keep in mind because that's the way the world's working right now. So I'm going to be prepared for it. I hope you will too. Regardless, Jack and I will do a Spider-Man film series rewatch leading up to probably this release date of Far From Home, No Way Home. I keep doing that. I'm never going to stop confusing the two titles. But Currently, that is the state of the MCU. And as Marvel goes as a whole, I'll ask you this, Agents of Excelsior. This is a question I have. There's a new Marvel game coming out. I think it might be out right now. Maybe it's in beta. There's a Marvel mobile game that might be coming to PC, but it is called Marvel Future Revolution. It's an open world MMO RPG, I think. MMO might not be exactly what you think it is. Like more instance like Destiny or Diablo, it seems like. But it looks kind of cool. And apparently there's like discussion of it getting a console release. It's kind of what I know a lot of people hoped Avengers would have been. Would you be curious for us to talk about it on the show? I don't even know if my phone could run it, but if it gets a PC release, my computer probably can. So if it's something you'd be curious about us discussing, I'd absolutely be down to check it out. Just let me know down below, at me on Twitter, or talk to me on TikTok, because, the Marvel train is not stopping on any of my outlets. So that, I think, is all the news regarding the game this week. Like I said, again, apologies for no Omega Level Threat impressions this week, but for now, the free weekend is the important thing because that is what is relevant to the game. We gotta get new blood in here. Get people to see why we play so much of this game that is really just okay. But before we end off, I do want to say this one thing. I've been doing a timeline rewatch of the MCU, and I just recently did Endgame. Specifically, my girlfriend and I watched Infinity War and Endgame back to back. It was like 5.5 hours. And surprisingly, I think doing that lessened the impact of Endgame, because I think those two movies together, initially we all thought they would have played excellently back to back, right? Because at Comic-Con in I think 2015, maybe 2014, Feige announced Infinity War Part 1 and Part 2. Eventually, things shifted around and then we got Infinity War and Endgame. I think the assumption stayed with me that the two movies would play really well off each other because they were initially a 2-part feature. But they really are kind of standalone, to the point where seeing the intense cliffhanger of Infinity War and feeling the things to some extent that I felt in theaters the first night, and then watching Endgame immediately after, and then seeing Doctor Strange and Spider-Man and Star-Lord and Wanda again after only 2 hours without them, it didn't feel as much of a victory or emotional, So that surprised me. Other than that, I think the MCU in timeline order is pretty great. Captain Marvel in Phase 1 feels like it fits in well. It should have released then. All that I have left is Far From Home. So once I do that, I will make sure that one of the upcoming weeks, our main topic in the back half of the show is updated rankings, because if you're not familiar, this show started as an MCU watch-along podcast. So that archive, I think, is only on YouTube, not on podcast services, because we shifted some back-end secrets. We shifted podcast hosts. Not like me host, I've always been the host, but the website that hosts the actual feed. We shifted after the initial run of Excelsior, and we lost some of them, and I have not wanted to clog the feed by re-uploading the episodes we lost. So for now, old Excelsior is on YouTube. You can check that out. But I believe that's everything. That is This Week in Marvel. If I missed something, I apologize. We will be back to normal next week. Of course, Jack will return. We will be back discussing how the free weekend went. Hopefully it goes very well. I really, really hope that, for Crystal Dynamics' sake, I hope this weekend works seamlessly. And I hope more people get to see that this game's actually pretty great if you're a Marvel fan. So, next week as well, we will have our Omega Level Threat opinions, thoughts, maybe multiplayer Mega Hive stuff, and hopefully all good news. So, that's going to do it for me this week. Thank you all for listening. I appreciate you all so much. Excelsior is a show that means a lot to me, means a lot to Jack, and in the grand scope of all the work I've done on podcasts and JoyClicks specifically, it is consistently, especially since last summer, the best performing podcast, the most engaging podcast in terms of community talk, and it warms my heart. So thank you all so much for enjoying the show, consuming the show, and caring about what we have to say about Marvel, because it means a lot to me. So I just wanted to say thank you on our little alone time episode. But yeah, I'm a sign off. You can find me in places at Chun2D2, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok. Again, I do TikToks daily about this game and Marvel as a whole, so you can check those out if you want a direct line to me. And yeah, patreon.com/joyclicks. If you enjoy the shows, you can support us on the financial level at $1 and $5 tiers. $5 will give you producer credit on this podcast and every podcast we do, like Aaron Easton and Charles Applin. So thank you very, very much. If you enjoy the show and you don't have the funds, or you just want to help us out the way you can, honestly, truly, sharing, liking, reviewing, giving us a star rating, it doesn't seem like it means a lot. It doesn't seem like it would be a big impact, but first off, it makes us very happy. So, like, genuinely. And it does help the show reach a wider audience. So hopefully, like this game, we will continue the momentum and just keep growing and keep having a very good future for Marvel's Avengers, because I see the potential. I know you do too. That's why you're here. But that's going to do it for me. Thanks again, everybody. See you next week with Jack. Enjoy your week's Agents of Excelsior. You can find Jack at FascinatedJack on Twitter. But until then, Excelsior.